I was talking on the communist bloc, and let me continue talking on it. One of the major realities of the Soviet Union after 1940, 1917, when they make first revolution, was the fact that Soviet Union was a country where peasants were dominant. Um, and all countries were which joined the Soviet Union, China, Mongolia, Vietnam, Cambodia, um, even Spain. Germany maybe was not to some extent that way, but it was not joined willfully in that sense. There was not no people's movement in Germany, which ultimately joined to the communist bloc. Um, all countries which after 1918 at least some moves occur which give that those countries, at least those countries inclined to join the communist bloc, had peasants as a majority. That was interesting and problematic because peasants were, according to Marx, a country where revolution will happen should be dominated by the workers, not the peasants. Not why. Basically, for example, my grandfather was also a peasant in that typical sense, and my father was also grown there. So peasants are not necessarily bad people, but the main problem with the peasants is that they are not connected to each other. They are living in an isolated places, so they are not able to organize. They cannot know each other. They don't learn how to work together. And workers are able to do that. And when workers become majority, only then you can have a socialist regime, according to Marx. But in Soviet Union in 1970s and all countries that will follow it, this will continue. You have a country where peasants are the majority. So how do you justify socialist revolution? First, you will say you will change the view a little bit by claiming, workers can work with. They might be the leaders of the revolution or transformation, but they can still make the peasants join them as the ally of them of this transformation process from capitalism or from even feudalism, where peasant-dominated society, to socialism, where workers and peasants together control the whole economic system. That's how the famous sign, the sickle, which represents the peasants, and the hammer, which represents the workers, come place. But then there was another problem once peasants joined to the once the socialist regime was founded. Once USSR was founded, peasants wanted to have their own private land, not USSR. In socialism, arguably all means of production should be joined, including land should be owned collectively. But for peasants, this is just meaning in a collectively owned land, working in a collectively owned land which is owned by all people of Soviet Union, means just the same as feels just the same as working for a landlord. So they wanted their own land. So what to do with the peasants? And this tendency of peasants was a major question in Soviet Union. So this created the idea is, according to some idea, you should allow the peasants. You should allow them to have a middle step where encourage them to have a middle step where they can come together and own a farm collectively by as a large number of peasants together. But still, the ownership of land would belong to this limited number of peasants, not to all people to the Soviet Union. But another idea was you need to have the USSR needed a large industrialization to be able to compete with in developed capitalist nations, and for that you need to increase productivity in agriculture significantly. Well, for Lenin, at least, the people's ideological bond to the system was more important. So he made a backstep and allowed peasants to own land. He also allowed even some private companies operate in industry, although he made the uh, certain critical industries owned by the state. Those industries are collectively named by him as commanding heights. Although this was considered as an enormous backstep by many people in his own party. So after him, actually Stalin, and pretty much I mean his the alternative to Stalin was usually mentioned as Trotsky, and Trotsky was also very much in favor of the same thing. Bukharin was one guy who was kind of not for this. So basically, Stalin has reversed Lenin's policy and created a completely state-owned economy, including, I mean, the land. Land was taken from the peasants. Well, some peasants peasants were allowed to work in collective farms, although they need to sell all of what they produce to the state at a fixed price. And other peasants were also encouraged to work in the state farm, which was owned by state, and they were considered to be working at the place which was owned by all Soviet people. And central planning was used to create industrialization in the country. Again, to what extent this central planning was beneficial for the people of the USSR is a question. I mean, it created a large industrialization, and growth rate has increased significantly. But on the other hand, it also creates a significant level of drop in the living standards of the Soviet people for a while, which make many of the Soviet people in 1930s to work very hard and live in very harsh conditions. Well, according to some people, especially in the USSR, this was necessary because that competition between the Soviet Union and the industrialized Western countries was real, and especially the Second World War was proved that industrialization was crucial for the Soviet Union. Although the price was also to some extent. I mean, the connection between the people and all decisions, everything was made by the upper authorities of the Soviet Union, and the connection between the people of the Soviet Union and the decision makers have been severed, and that might have been a very significant price to pay for the Soviet Union. But in the end, Soviet Union, without the connection of the people in general, in constant fear that something might provoke those people to challenge the regime. Well, that was the downside of the Soviet Union. They were afraid of alternative ideas, and that might be the most fatal thing for the Soviet Union. In the end, they were not able to design their economic system according to, as I said, the strengths of their system, their economic system. But kind of their economic system has mimicked the capitalist system. And I have already talked on consumption side of this mimicking, but also it is mimicked in terms of the production side. You work for a factory, you earn wage, and you spend your money on different things. They guarantee a certain living standard, and that might be good. That might be something beneficial, especially for the low-income Soviet people. But that guaranteed living standard was still on average below the US standards. And US in the United States, pretty much, I mean, it was the time where United States people were relatively more equal in economic sense compared with today, in this case. So poverty, in many cases, were not that experienced at that time in the United States, as severe as it is experienced today, like losing meals, staying homeless, and basically not be able to get to this central segment of the US population. That was not something experienced in today's intensities in the United States, even though in material sense they might be worse. I mean, as I said, they were more equal, and people who were feeling like outcast or close to become outcast to the society were in much less numbers in the United States at that time. So especially this difference, so the difference of the average living standards was something important, especially for them, for the people who were skilled in USSR, like doctors, lawyers, engineers. They think, I mean, they could live a much better life in the United States if they go there. Well, Soviet Union system is criticized in different ways. One of the critiques are, of course, from the Marxian side, Orthodox Marxian side. If you skip the capitalist step and get the worker-dominated society, then, I mean, how can you build an actual social system? So, according to this system is not actually socialist. Although, I mean, you should at least it should be possible for any socialist to accept that Soviet Union was at least interpreting Marxian views and build society accordingly. So you might say it might be a form of socialism, maybe. Although workers were, from sources I have read, at least not able to exert control on the means of production. Their will was not taken into account. But workers themselves, in a large peasant-dominated society, to some extent also delivered that will to the party officials, and that ironically has created this increasing distance between them and the party officials. So whether this skipping capitalist step has actually created all these problems of this distancing between the people who make the economic decisions and the people in the workers of the Soviet Union, that could be a question to discuss. Well, there was another idea which says, actually, I mean, of course, politically, being politically not democratic was a problem. I mean, in the sense that the workers are not able to govern the economic system directly was a problem. How they can do that is a question again, but, well, according to Marx, at least in socialism, workers exert control of the means of production. Well, whether a party rule that is supposedly representing the workers means that is a very, very, in my opinion, a doubtful thing, although that could be also an interpretation. But in the economic side of the socialist system, well, what was problematic, and in that sense, actually, for the Soviet style socialism, three different problems are mentioned by a Keynesian economist, actually. I mean, Stiglitz. The information problem, innovation problem, and motivation problem. Information problem basically states that the social system is not able to get informations on the wants and needs of the people because the price mechanism is not working there. Innovation problem tells that the Soviet Union, the companies have no need to innovate and don't know how to innovate also. And motivation problem basically states that in Soviet Union and in social system, workers don't have sufficient motivation to work harder. Well, I will discuss a little bit these Greek problems in the next part. So see you in the next part.